Hi everyone, welcome to our channel, Rebecca, Stu and the Crew. I'm Rebecca and today we have a special occasion gift ideas from the Dollar Tree. So let's go over our supplies for this DIY. We're going to need some tea towels, the microfiber cloths. Also, we're going to be using some clear dishes in various sizes. I'm also going to be using some Crafter square vinyl and either a razor blade or a cutting machine. We'll need some rubber gloves, the mini electric iron, or a full-size iron, some parchment paper, and a cutting machine. If you don't have one, you can use the razor blade, the glass etching cream, and some paint brushes. So let's get crafty. So first thing we're going to do today for our first project is we're going to open Design Space. In the Cricut software, I'm going to choose the shape circle and measure it out to be a 6" by 6" circle. Then I go down and choose my font. I'm using the cursive font, and we are going to be using this to create a stencil. So all we're going to do is choose the font that we want. And you want to make sure it's one that's going to not have really fine lines, because you want to make sure it's wide enough to use the etching cream. Once you choose your design, you're just going to type out what you want your plate to say. Mine is a wedding present, so it says Mr. and Mr. Wagner, established 9/1/23. And then once I have that done, I didn't really like the way the and sign looked in that font, so I decided to choose a different font for the and sign. So I'll type that out and I'll make it a different size. And then it was a tad bit thicker than the rest of the font. So I'm actually going to offset this font just a little bit, because the first time I tried this, the lines around the edges were just a little bit too thin. So I typed in 0.020 and weld the offset together. And now it's just the perfect amount of thickness for this stencil. Now we're going to take our 6 by 6 circle, and we are going to lay it underneath of our writing, and then we will highlight the whole thing. And once we have it, aligned in the center, so make sure you leave a little bit of space around the edges so you don't get the etching cream over the sides there. So you do want it a little bit in the center and not too close to the sides. Highlight the whole thing, and then hit your slicing tool down at the bottom and pull out those pieces. You can go ahead and delete those. We no longer need them. And now we've created our stencil. I'm making 2 plates, so I will duplicate this. Now it wants to cut them out on different mats, even though I have plenty of room. So I'm going to hit the 3 little dots, and it's going to ask me what I want to do. And I chose to move it to the other mat. And then I'll just figure out where it will fit so that I can cut this out on the same mat and not have to change the mats and the vinyl and everything. So once I have it laid out, we're going to choose what kind of material we're going to be using. And this is the Crafter Square Dollar Tree vinyl in permanent. So I went ahead and just chose vinyl from the list. I know some people don't like the Dollar Tree vinyl. It will work if you use a large enough stencil. Sometimes if it's really intricate, it doesn't cut out well. So I'm going to use my standard grip mat today, only because it's not that sticky anymore. It's kind of old. If it was really sticky, I would use my light grip mat so that this paper doesn't get stuck. And as you can see, I burnish it down to make sure that vinyl paper is really stuck to the back, and that helps it not to lift off of the backing while it's cutting, which is a huge problem with the Dollar Tree vinyl. So once that's done, we're just going to weed out the lettering. So since we're making a stencil, you're actually doing this in reverse. Usually we would pull the border out and just leave the lettering behind. But since we're making the stencil, we are going to pull all the lettering and numbers out and leave the border. And that will be what covers the rest of our plate and keeps it safe from the etching cream. As you can see, it cut out quite nice on this vinyl. I actually could have cut it out a little bit with the heavier choice. There's different settings for the cutting, and it cut all the way out, but a few pieces were stuck, so I had a little bit of trouble getting it off. So now I'm just going to take my large plate and lay it in the center just to make sure it fits. and my second one is cutting out right now. So once that's done, I also did a cake plate, and it's just like a monogram and has the same date. We're going to take some clear shelf liner paper, and we don't want it to be super sticky. So what we did is we just lay it down on a washcloth and then pull it up, and it helps to get rid of some of the adhesive. And then we lay that on top of our design that we're going to use as a stencil, and then pull that off. Then we're just going to find the center of our stencil and put it right in the middle of the plate. Now this is the smaller plate. This is the cake plate. And then we just burnish it down, remove that clear paper. And now our stencil is left behind, which is perfect. So always make sure all the edges are down really well. And we do the same thing to the other plates. And I take a hairdryer usually, just kind of go over it. It helps it to stick down really well and shrink out any bubbles around the edges. And that way I know that I'm not going to get any of my etching cream underneath of my stencil. So these two plates right here, these are the larger plates. These would be the dinner plates for the wedding. And then the smaller plate, of course, is for the cake table. So I make sure all my edges are down really well. Let's go all over all of them with that heating tool. Don't do it too much or too close. You don't want to wrinkle the vinyl or melt it. Then we're going to take that glass etching cream. So they do sell it at the Dollar Tree. I have this Armor Etch. I've used both, but I just have this Armor Etch that's already open. So I'm going to use that. So you want to stir it really well and then put a nice thick coat over top of your stencil, brushing back and forth, making sure that you don't get any over the edges of the stencil, and then really making sure that your design is well saturated so you don't miss any spots while doing the etching design. So I lay down my first coat. Now, once I have all of the plates covered, I go back and look at all of them and see if there's any spots where it's missing the etching cream, and I'll touch it up, and then I'll set the timer. So you can go anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30 minutes. I like the 20 minutes. I think that's the perfect setting or timing. And then we're going to wash it with some warm water and soap. I like to brush off a lot of the excess first before I wash it and pull off the paper. So that's what I'm doing here. I pulled off the majority of the etching cream, and then I use a tool to kind of lift up that vinyl because it's stuck down there pretty good, which is what we wanted, to make sure none of that etching cream got underneath of the edges. But you want to make sure you get all of that vinyl off, and then give your plate a really good washing. Now, while you're removing the vinyl paper, you want to make sure that you're not getting any of the etching cream around the plate anywhere by touching it with your fingers. If you do, just use a wet wipe to wipe it down so that you don't accidentally etch the edges of the plate where you were not intending to etch. Now we just have these few little pieces in the center of all the lettering to remove, and then we'll give the plate a really good washing. I also like to sometimes go over the whole thing with some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel that gets rid of all of the fingerprints and any leftover residue from the glass etching cream. This is what the plate looks all done. I just love it. It has this really pretty white frosted look to it. Here it is, just with some decorations around it. Now for our second project, we're going to make some customized towels. So we're going to use the towels, the vinyl, some ribbon, and a little bit of greenery. So these microfiber towels, these are the washcloths. I'm going to fold into a triangle, and then I use this HTV or high temp iron-on vinyl that Dollar Tree sells in these solid colors. Now we're going to use black. I love the iron-on vinyl from Dollar Tree. It works really, really well. You can cut out these small designs. It cuts out perfectly. I highly recommend it. So the first project struggled a little bit with the stencil, but this one reads really well. You can cut out small pieces and all. I really like the iron-on vinyl from the Dollar Tree. So we're going to try this little miniature iron. I picked it up for $5. It doesn't get really hot, and I wanted to try to see if I could get it to iron on small, intricate pieces with my Cricut and the vinyl, Sometimes you need a little iron and it works in small spaces. So I tried for several minutes. I even removed the parchment paper, thinking maybe it was just a little bit too thick, and went right on top of that carrier sheet, which is what you really don't always want to do. Put the iron right on that plastic, but it just didn't seem to want to stick. I held it on for several minutes. I did the front, and then I opened it up. I tried to get the glue to stick from the back by heating it up for several minutes, and I just could not get that carrier sheet off without lifting up the vinyl. So it just does not get hot enough for the vinyl. So far, I'm not a huge fan. I went back to the regular iron, went over it just a little bit, and then I was able to pull the carrier sheet off and leave the vinyl behind. So we're making Mr. and Mrs. washcloths for the newlyweds. And so I did 2 that say Mr. and 2 that say Mrs. in the corner. And again, we fold these into a triangle shape. And they don't have to be exactly in the same spot. Just know if you put them in the corner, just make sure you try to get them about as far down into the corner for each one so that they're roughly in the same spot. And as you can see, they iron on really well. That Dollar Tree vinyl works really well here on these microfiber cloths, and it only takes about 30 seconds to iron it to the towel. So now for the hand towels, we have the larger monograms with the same frame, and we're going to use again the regular iron, and I think we used it for about 45 to 50 seconds, and then we were able to remove that carrier sheet. Okay, so once we remove that carrier sheet, what I do is I open it up and I iron on the back as well to make sure that I have the adhesive well stuck to the front and the back of the towels. And here are our towels and our washcloths all designed. Super easy, elegant gifts. Just love how these turned out. There's different ways you can package them. You can put them in baskets. I like to wrap mine with a satin ribbon. So what I do is I layer the towels, and then I am going to just tie a very simple knot with the satin ribbon. I'll take a little bit of the eucalyptus leaves or some boxwood, and I will cut one little stem off and then slide it down between the knot that we just sewed or tied there, and then you'll want to dovetail your tassels to the ribbon. So we just dovetail those and pull them so they lay the same direction, and then go ahead and pop a little bit of greenery or a small flower. Some baby breaths even would work really well here, and tie your satin ribbon tight to make sure that the greenery stays. And then for the washcloths, we just fold it into a triangle and then fold the sides back to create this design. And then I just layer all 4. And then again, we'll take the satin ribbon, we'll tie it in a knot and tie the greenery in the knot. Once we have it tied tight, again, we'll just fold the ribbon in half and then dovetail the ends. And here's our super elegant towels and washcloths for the newlyweds with their monogram and Mr. and Mrs. For the mini iron, which was $5, it's really lightweight. It's a very thin plastic. You can't push down very hard on the iron. If you do, it probably would break the handle. It doesn't get very hot. It almost worked on the vinyl. It would help to iron a little bit of it down, but it could not iron all of it. So it was like a hit or miss. It just was not really any rhyme or reason why some of it would iron it down and other places it wouldn't work. It doesn't get very hot. But if you want to take a piece of like the craft or square fabric, which is pretty thin, and just iron it, it actually worked quite well on that to get the lines out of it. If you wanted to use it to iron down a hem before you sew, it actually worked quite well with that. It took a little bit longer than a regular iron would take because it's quite time consuming to warm it up. But as you can see, it ironed the hem down actually quite well. So it definitely works. to iron down like edges, or just to get the wrinkles out of a thin piece of cloth, or even just to teach a small child that's learning how to craft, it'd be a good iron because it doesn't get too hot. So is it worth the $5? Not really sure. It's kind of hit or miss for me. But thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And here are some other videos from our channel you might also enjoy. Have a great day, everyone.